Alright, hey guys, Hi-Fri here. Let's get started. Okay, so real quick, this is my second time recording this video because a lot of things have changed in the past week. I am so sorry guys, I know I've told you multiple times that I was going to release this video, but I literally, it's been one thing and then I discover something else and then something else happens and something else happens. So I would do a test and then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh wait, well what about this thing? And anyway, so long story short, we got a lot to cover today. I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible. That is why I have 3 units here, okay? Real quick, I bought one from Amazon. And then I had Hawaii Bad Boy. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it so much. He reached out to me. He said, dude, why are you spending your money? He's like, let me send you a unit and I'll have Linsoul send you a unit. So anyway, so they sent me a unit, and but I'm gonna still keep a unit just because I had taken it apart. But what had happened is so the unit I got had a slight channel imbalance, and I wasn't too happy with it. Plus, I wanted to see inside it anyway. But before I decided that, I was like, okay, I'll just order a replacement, and I was gonna send the one back. And well, anyway, long story short, the replacement ended up saying it was gonna take a week to get here. So I was like, are you serious? I was like, alright, well I got another one coming anyway, so why don't I just take it apart, I'll send the replacement back, or, whatever, send the replacement back, and then that way, I can have everything ready to go, and I can go forward with the review anyway, and I'm not waiting on stuff to arrive. So one of these has to go back to Amazon, the other one is taken apart, and the one is for my own personal enjoyment. So that is why I have 3 units here. So anywho, let's get into it. So yeah, so this was very graciously sent to me by Linsoul. Just wanted to disclose that to you guys. I did buy one with my own money. That was the first one that I got, but this was sent to me by Linsoul. So I just want to give a huge shout out to Linsoul, and I want to give a shout out to Hawaii Bad Boy for hooking me up. Now we're going to do an unboxing, and then I'm going to do some comparisons because there's a little elephant in the room that we need to address, and we'll get to all that in just a second. So first let's just go ahead and we're going to do a quick unboxing here. For anybody that isn't already familiar, so the Khan is 2DD. It's a 7.8mm and a 10mm LCP driver. They are in like a crossover configuration, so one handles the bass, the other handles the mids and highs. Okay, so it comes in this nice little box. I will say packaging is a little bit busy. I covered this in my last video. There's a lot going on. It looks nice. It still looks nice, don't get me wrong, but especially like on the back here, there's just a lot going on. So whoever their package designer is, they might be able to make it a little bit more coherent because there's just a lot of stuff all over the place. But other than that, it looks nice. So cool little design there on the box. Here, we'll get in real close. So you see there, it's got the QKZ triangle logo. Alright, so common misconception while I'm unboxing this. A lot of people think that QKZ is associated with the brand KZ, Knowledge Zenith. No, they are not. QKZ is its own brand. It is not associated with Knowledge Zenith. QKZ manufactures IEMs. They're ODM, OEM, and they manufacture IEMs for other companies. And KZ is probably one of those companies because I've seen the same kind of technology as far as like the manufacturer goes, but they're not associated. If you look, I'll show you in a little bit, but if you look at the back of the boxes, it tells you the company name right on the box, where they're located, their head offices and everything, and QKZ is not associated with KZ. So I had like 2 people mention that to me. They're like, oh yeah, did you know QKZ is a sub-brand of KZ? I'm like, no, it's not. So anyway, so you get this cool little medallion here. Alright, so it says HBB audio on the coin on one side, and then if you flip it over, it's got QKZ's logo. It's pretty hefty. It's probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 grams, 10 grams. But yeah, so QKZ on one side, HBB on the other side. Cool looking little tchotchke that you get with the IEMs. They come in this plastic case. At first I wasn't a big fan of the case, just because it's a plastic case, but I realized that it actually is a pretty good case. So it's very thin, it's low profile, so it's easy enough to fit into a pocket. I did test it with the IEMs in the box attached with the cable coiled inside, and they do fit perfectly, so there is no issue fitting anything in here. You can even keep all the spare tips and everything. And as far as its durability goes, it's really strong. I'm giving it everything I can give it. And your IEMs are gonna stay safe. So it's much safer than putting them in that soft case that the Zero came with. So you get the plastic case, you get a nice cable here. Dig into the cable real quick. Alright. Come on. So a nice cable, you get this like angular knurling on the connector itself. The QKZ, or sorry. What is it? Sorry, one sec. Excuse me, QDC. Sorry, the QDC connectors on the ends. Pretty tight ear hooks, so good ear hooks. Not the softest plastic, but comfortable enough to wear for long periods of time. Lightweight cable, so the cable that I'm using right now, I'll show you guys later, is like super lightweight, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, so this is another nice quality cable for the IEMs. You know, it's nothing special. It's a cheaper cable, but it gets the job done, and it does a good job. So and it's built nicely. You get metal on the divider, and you get metal on the plug itself. As far as the divider goes, there is no chin cinch, so you will have to either find your own way of making a chin cinch or just replace the cable with another aftermarket cable. But yeah, so that's what you get. So let's see, so we got the IEMs themselves, we got the medallion, we got the case, we got the cable, and then as far as tips go, not the biggest inclusion of tips, but you do get everything necessary. And I will explain a little bit about the whole presentation of the IEMs. So you have 3 sets of tips. You got small, mediums, and large, so pretty standard there. So this is pretty much what you get. This is your whole presentation right here. And as far as price goes, they are only $40, so 39 bucks gets you all of this. Now, there is the Truthear Zero. Okay, so that's the elephant in the room, and let's just cover that real quick. We're gonna get to that. Okay, so for anyone not familiar, there was an IEM that came out a few months back. It was a collaboration between Critical and Moondrop. Their sub-brand Truthear is it is a sub-brand of Moondrop, but anyway, so they came out with this IEM called Zero. The IEM itself is the same configuration, a little bit different tuning. So it's a 2DD IEM, and this was the package that it came in. Now the price is $10 more. It's $50. Okay, not everybody is able to afford $50. So the whole point of at least when I spoke with Hawaii Bad Boy, the whole point of doing this IEM was to fix a couple problems that he saw with the tuning of the IEMs, but also to provide it at a lower price for people who couldn't quite afford the $50 price tag. So, and I will admit, it is, you know, it's 20% more affordable. But yeah, so if you notice any similarities between the IEMs, that is because they are manufactured in the same factory. So obviously you do get a couple more things as far as like tips go. You do get a leather pouch, which is a little bit more expensive to make. Instead of getting a coin, you do get this little paper tchotchke, which is much cheaper to make, much cheaper than the coin anyhow. But yeah, so that is its association. So they are made by the same factory. They do have the same implementation of drivers, so these are the same two LCP drivers. There's a 10 millimeter and a 7.5, but they are tuned differently, and we'll get into sound impressions and whatnot. So I'm going to put this stuff away, and then we'll get to the IEMs. Alright, so these are the IEMs. We'll go over build quality real quick, and then we'll start getting into teardowns, and we'll get into my observations, and we'll get into graphs and all that stuff. So anyway, let me, here, real quick, let me just pause. Okay, so these are the IEMs themselves. The quality of the print is exactly the same. Sorry, there might be a couple smudges just because I was wearing them. But so the quality of the print is exactly the same pretty much as the Truthear Zero. It is DLP printed, 3D printed shell. The only difference is in the Truthear Zero, the back plate here is all resin. Okay, and instead QKZ decided to go with this metal. Now this is a metal faceplate. Okay, so it's a metal faceplate on 3D printed resin. They're a little bit weightier. Also, the dimensions are a little different. So the Truthear Zero is a little bit deeper from front to back. The Khan is just a little bit shorter. Nozzle dimensions are the same. Okay, so as far as the length of the nozzle, the width of the nozzle is the same. It uses the same stamped metal like filter. Okay, so this piece right here, this is the same. All right, and then inside it there's a dampener, and that is also the same. The QDC, the 2-pin connector, is obviously different. I believe the Zero uses a recessed or flush, or no, it's a flush 2-pin connector. And then you have your vent here on the back. On one side you have the Hawaii Bad Boy logo, and then on the other side you have the QKZ logo. So truly a collaboration between the two companies, to be sure. But they are pretty nice IEMs. You also get the same tips as the Zero. And if for anyone not familiar with these tips, these are kind of like moondrop tips that you would get with the Blessing 2, or like the S8, or what is it, the Soft Ears, Volume, a lot of different IEMs. And actually maybe not the Volume. I think the Volume, they actually made the nozzle a little bit thinner. But for IEMs that have this larger nozzle here, especially the Blessing 2 and such, you do get these wider tips. They have a big inner diameter bore to fit the large nozzle, because other tips aren't going to quite fit it. So just keep that in mind. If you do get ear tips, like you won't be able to use a like the CP100s and whatnot. They'll just be too small. So you might have to step up and get like 145s. Or try a different tip. We'll actually, here, let me measure this real quick. I'll get you dimensions. Okay, so the nozzle diameter itself is about 6 millimeter. Okay, that's the smaller portion is about 5.6, but the larger portion is about, no, it says 6.6. So somewhere around there. So about 5.6 for this inner portion there. Yeah, and about 6.6 for the outer. So yeah, so very, very big, very large nozzles. So just keep that in mind, that you might have issues with finding other tips. Also, another thing is, for people with smaller ear canals, you might have issues fitting ear tips on. I don't have any issues personally. The small fit me fine, the medium fit me fine. I don't have any issues with those whatsoever. But anyway, just wanted to let you know that. And then you can kind of just make out the 10 millimeter driver here, and then if you look closely, you can just barely make out the 7.8 millimeter driver right there. And then there is the bass tube that comes down the side here. So there's a tube that comes from the 10mm and works its way down, and then there's a vent that vents that forward pressure from the dynamic driver and vents it out the back. So anyway, so that's that. Then we'll put these back on. Alright, so let's talk sound impressions before we get into teardown. So what do they sound like? A little bit, oh, I got stuff sticking to me. So they're a little bit on the warmer side. They sound pretty decent. They have good extension. Pretty coherent. They're actually, in my opinion, I think they're a little bit more coherent than the Zero. Imaging, stage, now some of this is going off of memory, so I could be wrong about this, but I'm going to try to give you guys as well of a description as I possibly can, at least following from memory. I wanted to get a pair of Zero to compare them to, but I just didn't have the money to buy a pair and pay for shipping and all that and receive them in time. So, but it doesn't matter. They're close enough anyway, and I'll explain why I know that later. So I'll throw a graph up on the screen here, and you can see in this graph. So you have the lower bass region here. So you got this nice kind of curved bass. And now you notice the sub bass is a little bit lower than the mid bass. You don't actually really hear that, or at least I don't really notice that kind of that roll off in the sub bass region. I mean, you might notice it a little bit, but for the most part the bass sounds pretty linear, and so you have that hump. It gets a little bit louder into the mid bass, and then it kind of rolls off again once it gets into the mids. Now, to my ears, it just sounds nice and full across the range. It doesn't sound bloated. It's not muddy or anything like that. Sounds pretty clean, pretty coherent. None of it really sounds louder or softer than the others. It flows nicely into the mids. Once you get to the, what is it, like 200 hertz region, all the way up, you know, you take over to that, it goes to that 7.8mm DD. That's when that dynamic driver takes over, and from everything then on is just the same driver. So once you get into that region, there's no changeover or anything. But between those two, in that little crossover area, you don't really notice any separation. There is a little bit, but it's not like the Zero. So in the Truthear Zero, and I think more of that had to do with the tuning, but the bass was a lot more detached from the mids and the treble, so it gave it kind of this like subwoofer effect. In the Khan, it's more coherent. There's not really that kind of detached like subwoofer effect. There is a little bit, but it's hardly noticeable compared to the Zero. And then on top of that, the bass is also a little more boosted, so you get more bass with the Khan. So if you are a bass head, or you like bass, you're gonna like the Khan for sure. The mids, so let's talk about the mids for a little bit. So to my ears, now looking at the graph, it kind of tells a little bit of a different story, but to my ear, the mids sound very, very even, very linear throughout the range. There's not really any shoutiness. There might be just a slight little bit of honk to it. So, you know, for like thicker, warmer recordings, they might be a little too mid-forwards for some people. They are definitely skewed a little warmer than the Zero. The Zero is a little bit more cold, a little more analytical, and it's got more of its emphasis in the upper mid region. So, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, they sound really good. And then you get into the treble area, you have a couple of little peaks there. You get the one peak at 8 kilohertz, which I think is just a result of the coupler. I don't think that's actually an audible peak. And then you have a roll off once you get towards about 10 kilohertz. You start rolling off, and then it picks up again at about 14, and then it rolls back down just a little bit, and you get another peak at about 17 maybe. So plenty of extension. If they don't lack any extension whatsoever. Now going from these and stepping up, because I listened to a couple IEMs just to kind of get an idea, because I can get stuck into this mode. I enjoy most IEMs equally. I can put one in my ear and listen to it for a week straight and not have any desire to really listen to any other ones. But just as a test, I decided to pop in the AFL Performer 5. And so what I can say about the Khan is, yes, they're only $40. They run a lot cheaper than other IEMs. Their performance is really good for the money. But they do have kind of a more closed-in head stage, and they are a little bit warmer in their tonality, and they're also a little bit more sibilant. You're not going to notice it at all unless you're listening to like a really bad recording. But compared to higher-end IEMs, you are going to get a cleaner replay out of them, and that's just because the drivers that they used in here are a little bit on the cheap side. But they are the most expensive drivers that you can get for this price range. I don't think, like on the margins that they're pulling on these, I don't think they're making very much money off of these. And the reason why I say that is just because of the packaging, the tuning, the implementation of the two drivers, the quality of the two drivers, everything else, everything that goes along into this presentation, and also comparing it against the Zero. I think they pretty much hit their peak target as far as sound quality goes and price to performance ratio. So but yeah, so male vocalists are nice and full. They don't leave me wanting at all. Female vocal performances are fine. Like I said, you might hit a couple recordings where they come across just maybe a little too hot, but for the most part they're fine. The treble area is nice, it's clean, it's detailed, it's pretty crisp. These drivers, they have a little bit of softness to them, so that's one thing I did notice. Like for instance in the bass, it's kind of woofy. It's got a woofy texture to it. It sounds more like a loudspeaker than it does like an IEM, so it sounds kind of like, like you would a subwoofer in your car. It's not unpleasant, but it's just not the tightest bass. So don't look for this like super, macro detail, like high-end, super performing bass. Also, the dynamics are a little bit squashed on these. They're not, but they're $40. It's hard to complain. You really can't complain about anything just because of the price. I mean, this is the performance that I would expect from, at least a $40 IEM. Not to say like a $80 IEM or even like a $100 IEM. Not today's $100 IEM, of course, but just because the way things are going, IEMs are just crazy now. But yes, as far as their performance goes, they definitely earn their price tag for sure. The sound quality is very, very good for the price. So that's basically where I'll leave it. The tuning is a little bit on the warm side. I wouldn't really call it a V shape. It's more like an L shape. So you have big bass, and then you have kind of like a warm character to it. Then you have a little bit of treble roll off, but you have lots of treble extension, and you have those upper peaks which kind of regain that clarity. But yeah, so just overall pleasing tuning. It's got a nice tonality to it. The performance as far as like technicalities go, it's nothing special, but it's good for the money, so they're good for the price, and that's really pretty much all I can say about them. I'm not going to give them a rating or anything. I'm not that kind of channel. I'm more into taking them apart, but I will say if you're into bass, you will most likely like these. If you're not into bass, then obviously I wouldn't get these. But we'll talk a little bit more. I'm gonna get set up with something else. We'll do a little teardown and we'll start talking about the insides. All right, guys, let's get into teardown territory. So this is the first pair that I bought, and you can kind of see that. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but the face plates are a little boogered up. There's a little bit of schmutz on the top of the triangle there, and then there's like this weird like haze or something. It's like they wiped it with a cloth, but it's kind of dirty. Anyway, so this was the pair that I decided to tear down. Now I did clear coat them, and you can't really see the drivers too well, but there are drivers inside there. I just decided to do it super quick while I had the camera paused, so I could kind of get a better view inside these, and then I'll just show you guys what I did. But anyway, so let's talk about the insides real quick. Okay, so this is the inside of the Khan here. So we got our, let me see if I can get a better zoom on the speakers there. So we have our 10mm LCP dynamic driver here, okay, and then we have our crossover component here. Now this is your typical like frequency divider, but there are a couple differences with it, and we'll talk about that. There's still a couple unknowns, like this component. I have not been able to track this down anywhere, but I pretty much already know what it is. So, but anyway, underneath you can see there is our 7.8mm right there. Alright, so that's our 7.8mm, and this is our 10mm. So this is taking care of all the lows, all the bass, and this is taking care of all the highs. And if we look underneath, there we go. So you can just begin to see the tubes just a little bit better. But so you have like this front cavity right here that the dynamic driver goes to, and there's a vent off to the side that the bass bleeds off of, and then it hits this like little Y pipe, or this little, here, let me do it this way so you can see it a little better. So it hits this little Y section here. So it comes off the dynamic driver, and it comes here, and then it hits this little junction right here, and this is where the pressure bleeds off. So that little dampener right in there, that's where the excess pressure, when you go to insert them into your ears, that's where it bleeds off of, and then also that's where like any kind of like excess bass or whatnot, it bleeds off of there. And then we follow it along, and it keeps going, and it goes down into the nozzle. And then if we look at the front of the nozzle here, so we have this little mesh here. That's just your protective mesh. I'll put that down. And then we have a dampener here. Now, get this glue out of the way. But right there is the hole for the dynamic driver. So that's where all the bass comes out of. So same design as the Zero. And you can see they molded in this little like pad here, kind of wraps around, that holds the screen in place, and then there's a little recess that's built into it that can hold this dampener separately. Alright, so let me just grab something to pull the dampener off with. Okay, and now underneath the dampener, that's where you'll find the 7.8mm dynamic, and you can see the hole. See how the hole is wider? The reason for the hole being wider is because you have to have all the treble bleed through that area. But you can see they squished that 7.8mm dynamic right up to the edge there. You can see that whole area, this whole bottom area is filled with that. And there's just enough room on the side that they could bring the bass tube around and have that meet up with it. So the bass is the small tube, so that little small tube up there, and then the big hole is for the mids and for the treble. And then this dampener here, this just adds control to the mid driver and removes all the peaks. Just makes it sound a little bit better. So, and then same thing, mesh goes on top, and it sits on that little like horseshoe shaped mount that they put in there. So anyway, so yeah, so just to recap, mids and highs, that's your 7.8 millimeter LCP, 10 millimeters your base, and then let's talk about this crossover a little bit here. So to control the volume, from what I know, to control the base so that the power comes in on the red wire, first it travels through this resistor here. It's going to knock the base down by a couple dB, because one of these drivers is 16 ohms and the other is like 32 ohms. So it's going to knock down a couple dB. Then we have this capacitor here, and this capacitor filters out all the highs and mids from the base driver here. This capacitor is about 200 nanofarad, and it runs in parallel with the base driver. So that is that. And then we have either another capacitor or some kind of inductor. I want to say it is a capacitor, but I could be wrong. I believe it might be an inductor just to slow down the mid driver here so it can operate at the same time or similar time as the base driver, but I could be wrong. Someone pointed out to me the other day, they said it was a capacitor, and I've seen capacitors like this, but I've never found this exact model of capacitor. But anyway, these are the same components that are in the Truthear Zero. The layout and everything is exactly the same, so there's no difference between the crossover in the Khan and the Truthear Zero. Now the drivers, that's a different story, and we'll get into those in a minute. But I just wanted to post up a couple graphs for you guys. So I took the liberty of doing a solid because I no longer have the shell from the Truthear Zero. So I took the shell from the Khan and I fit the dynamic drivers from the Truthear Zero. So underneath this crossover PCB here is the 7.8 millimeter from the Truthear Zero and the 10 millimeter from the Truthear Zero, and you'd be surprised the results. So, because it took me a while to investigate to find out what the differences were between these two IEMs, because they are obviously tuned different, but the drivers are the same material. They look like they're from the same manufacturer. Same thing with the shell and everything. The tubing inside all appears to be the exact same diameter, same dimensions, but the tuning's different. Even down to the dampeners, I believe most of the dampeners are the same. So like the vent dampener here, I believe that is the same, and the front dampener for the 7.8 millimeter driver, I believe that is also the same. So what did they change if they changed the tuning? Well, so one of these drivers has a gold casing on it and the other has a silver casing, okay? And I think they did that for a reason. It also has a green PCB and the Zero has a blue PCB. Now both of these drivers use the exact same LCP material, okay? Down to the material level, they use the exact same PU polyurethane and the exact same liquid crystal polymer for the drivers. The only difference between these two that I've found, and the reason why they are different between the two, is because the one in the Khan is got a different resistance than the one in the Zero, so the impedance is different, just slightly enough. So for example, the Zero is like 32 ohms, where the Khan is like 30 ohms. So there's just a minuscule amount of difference between these two drivers. And then if we look at the back of the 7.8 millimeter drivers, it's kind of hard to see. We'll get there. Sorry guys, we'll get there. Alright, so the difference between these two drivers that I can tell are the dampeners on the back, okay? So the difference in mids that you're hearing, the difference in mid-range is because of the dampener. The impedance, so I checked the impedance between these two drivers, and the characteristics are exactly the same, and I can post a graph on the screen here for you. So it's like 7K and up, they're identical, but anything under that point and they begin to change. And you'll notice the hole on the back of the Khan. So the gold driver is the Khan driver, and the silver driver is the Zero driver. So the Khan driver has a larger hole on the back of it, which means that it can vent more air. As far as the mesh grain, I'm not sure, but you can tell that it's obviously smaller on the back of the Zero. So it appears that they are using two different dampeners. And you can even see, so remember how I was telling you about the base vent? I mean, you can even see here that they're pretty much the same. So I can see that weave on the screen here, and you can see that they both appear to be identical as far as the density of the dampening material. And we could even go around to the front here, okay, and we'll just pull one of these off. So I did change out with the Zero. I mean, yeah, I changed out with the Zero dampener on the front of the one that I put the Zero drivers in, just for shits and giggles. And I have pictures here, so I'll throw up pictures on the screen. So this is a close-up of the Truthear Zero dampener versus the Khan dampener, and I'll leave that up to your imagination which one is which. So the driver material's the same, the crossovers are the same, the acoustic structure is the same, the vents are the same, but the connector's different, the shell itself as far as just like the dimensions are a little bit different, or the outer dimensions. The PCBs are just a little bit different to fit the shells, and the impedance is a little bit different on the Khan driver as opposed to the Zero, and the dampener is different on the back of the Khan driver than the Zero. So, and that is how they are affecting the tuning. So the only two major differences are change of impedance and change of dampener. So, but everything else is the same. So I have a couple dynamic drivers here, and I'll just show you, and we'll get to microscope pictures too. I'll put microscope pictures up in a second. But so we have, oh, sorry, 1 second. Okay. There we go. So we have the two different dynamic drivers. So one of them is from the Zero, and the other is from the Khan. Okay. Both made out of the same material, most likely from the same manufacturer. Here, let me get it in on them a little bit closer. Sorry, my light's kind of blowing them out a little bit. But yeah, so you can see there. So they're like a milky white LCP. And you can see maybe just a little bit of difference between the two. Now the red, so one of them uses either a clear glue or a blue glue, and the other uses a red glue to attach the voice coil. And I think that's another sign of the change in impedance. So for anyone that doesn't know, so this one on the left, that is from the Truthear Zero, and this one on the right is from the Khan. Okay, you can see other than differences in color, the diaphragms are exactly the same. So same material, pretty much the same thickness, same density, just a little different. And then I don't have the Zero driver because I lost the driver somewhere on the floor. I have the other one currently inside the IEM here that I showed you earlier. Actually, I'm sorry, it's this one here. So I have the other driver inside here. I've already taken these and I've already compared the two of them. But yeah, so basically these are identical too. So same material. There's just a very subtle difference between them, and I think that's just variation. So they're either made in the same factory and they're just made a little different, or they're made in different factories but they're made to be the same. But yeah, so that's so the milky white part is your LCP. Whoop. Okay, so that's your LCP, and then the outer ring is your PU, your polyurethane surround ring. So it's basically like sorry, this stupid light swamping it out, but it's basically your surround ring right there. So anywho, so those are the drivers, and I just thought you guys might find that fascinating. So that is what they share in common as far as the Truthear Zero and the Khan goes. Like I said, I'll post a graph here so you can see the Khan that I replaced the drivers on with the Truthear Zero, and then the stock Khan that has its drivers in there. And then also we'll take a look at the microscope and we'll see, so you can see the microscope photos. So here is the Khan driver. This is the 10 millimeter. Okay. And then now this is the Truthear Zero. So you can see the Truthear Zero. And then, so for the 7.8 millimeter, so you guys can compare. If you want to freeze frame on those, you can take a look at the differences in material. You can tell me if you see any differences. Alright, so we got the unboxing done, we got sound impressions, we went over teardown, we went over the drivers. Let me pause real quick, collect my thoughts, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so before I finish, just to go over it again, so pretty much my thoughts of the Zero versus the HBB Khan. I'm really not sure which one I like more. I kind of go back and forth. I'm gonna purchase another Zero just because I'm very curious and I don't want to let curiosity get the best of me. But what is the point of this IEM? What is the justification for this IEM? What justifies its existence? Now, I talked to Hawaii Bad Boy about it, and he made a good point that not a lot of people can afford $50, and I'm sure he thought there were some improvements that could be made to the sound. I mean, this is his take on the signature, on the tuning, and it's, you know, it's good. It's just like all the other IEMs that he comes out with. It's a good IEM. It has a good signature to it. It's got good tonality. It's nothing wrong with it at all. It's a great IEM, and it's more affordable, which in my opinion is a bonus. I mean, that's a plus. In these times, you know, a lot of crazy stuff's going on, and people can't afford to be spending all their money on earphones. So the fact that these are more affordable really goes to show that he cares about that kind of thing, and at least getting good sound into people's hands. You know, not to say that Truthear isn't, because they're the first ones that came out with this, you know, and yeah, it's a $50 IEM, but you know, they were the ones that pioneered it. Now, do I think that Hawaii Bad Boy did a better job, or that he improved them? I'm not sure. I'll leave that up to you guys for your interpretation. If you already own the Zero and you try the Khan, I think they're both great in their own right. I think they both have a reason to exist. You know, the bass is increased. You know, it's a different tuning. The mids are a little bit fuller. They're a little bit warmer on the Khan, and the Zero is a little bit colder, a little bit more analytical, a little bit more detached between the bass and the mids. But some people really like that. You know, some people are looking for that kind of sound. So it's really up to you which one you like more. Now, I will say this. So for someone that doesn't have very much money and is curious about buying this product, and you're asking yourself, should you? There are a couple qualifying questions, because at the end of the day, both of these IEMs perform the same, okay, as far as their technicalities go, the tonality, the timbre, pretty much all of that is going to be identical. The tuning is the only real difference on display here, and a little bit of difference in coherency, at least in my opinion. That is how I feel. So what I would ask is, do you already own the Zero? Are you someone who bought the Zero and liked it? Are you someone who bought the Zero and wanted more bass out of it? Are you someone who did not buy the Zero but you're curious about it? You know, and $40 is more appealing, but you're not sure whether or not to take the dive. So what I'll say to that is, if you're someone who already owns the Zero and you already enjoy the Zero and it doesn't leave you wanting in any way, then there probably isn't a reason for you to spend more money on a very similar IEM. Now, if you're someone who bought the Zero, but it leaves you wanting a little bit, you want fuller mids, you want male vocals to sound more full, or you can't handle the detached sounding bass, or you want a warmer profile and something that's less cold sounding, something that's a little bit less mid-forward sounding, or upper mid, I should say, more like well-rounded as far as better coverage in the mids. You know, if it leaves you wanting a little bit and you want to experiment with the signature, then I would say absolutely go for the Khan, because it has, or also if you're a bass head too, same thing. You want more bass out of it, absolutely, because the capability of the drivers is the same. The quality is the same. It's all there. It's the complete package, but it's Hawaii Bad Boy's take on the IEM. So you're going to get his style of tuning, and I think that it makes a good amount of difference. You know, it's a solid IEM. It sounds good. So, with that being said, if the Zero left you wanting in any way, then yeah, I would say definitely go for the QKZ for the Khan. Now, if you have not tried the Zero, okay, so say that this doesn't exist, and you're just watching this video and you're saying, well, should I get this IEM? Is it worth the $40? You know, say you're curious about it, but you're not really sure to take the plunge. I will say this. Now, I don't recommend doing this. This is only like worst case scenario if you really can't stand it and you're really not happy with your purchase. It's available on Amazon. You can buy it. It's risk-free. I don't like to advertise that, just because they're earphones. You're going to pass it on to somebody else. They're going to have to stick them in their ears, and that's not a good thing to do. Really, honestly, if you like them, maybe keep them, or at least clean them before you return them. But yeah, if it comes down to it and you just really can't stand them, it's a worry-free guarantee, you know, that you're not going to get stuck with something that you don't like. Okay, so I will say it that way. But that only really applies to if you're like in the US or Canada. But if you're someone else who is outside of those regions and you're curious about them, then yeah, I'd say go for them. Why not? They're $40. I mean, they deliver the same, if not better performance than a $50 IEM, you know. And that $50 IEM was being compared to $80 IEMs and $100 IEMs. So really, you know, what's not to like about it? You're getting the same quality, the same performance at a lower price, you know, from a reputable reviewer in the industry who's had multiple, you know, collaborations with companies that have been successful. So it's like, why not? You know, you want to go for it, go for it. If you're looking at the graphs and you're not sure it's for you, then, you know, maybe hold off and wait and check out other people's reviews. I would say the best thing to do is to look at the reviews, look at the graphs, and see if you think it'd be something that you like. If you're a bass head or you're someone who likes emphasized bass, I wouldn't really classify this as quite a bass head IEM, but I would say it's close. It's like almost there. But if you're someone who really likes bass, you're going to like this IEM. If you're someone who's opposed to bass and you want more of a neutral tuning, more of a neutral target, then probably steer clear for a little while until you read reviews about it and kind of get the idea of what other people are saying about it. People whose ears that you trust and people whose taste that you share similarities with, you know, not just any old reviewer, but someone who likes the same stuff you like, and then you know, figure out if it's something that you're gonna like. But yeah, I will say, you know, I think they're pretty good, and it's definitely a very interesting take on it. So like I said, QKZ, they're a OEM ODM, and they manufactured the IEMs for Zero, and they manufacture for a lot of other companies. So it's pretty cool that they, you know, they're able to take the same kind of technology and rewrap it into a different package and make it more affordable. So, I mean, anytime the price goes down, I'm always happy with it. And, you know, it's a nice package, nice IEMs, build quality is decent. You know, it's the same build quality as the Zero, so if you like the Zero, you're going to like these as well. You know, same quality tips. You get a little nicer quality of case. You know, pretty much same quality cable. Cable's not much different. You know, so all that stuff is the same. But as far as like overall sound quality goes, I think you're getting an excellent package. And you should be happy either way. So, and then also you get this cool little coin. I mean, why not? Look at that. I mean, that's cool. So, but anyway, guys, I'll leave it at that. And I know this was kind of a messy video. Like I said, this is my second time recording it. First video, I was recording it and I was like discovering all this new stuff, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So I basically had to get to the root of what was going on inside these. And like I said, I pretty much figured it out. You know, they are pretty much the same IEMs, but the tuning is in the drivers. So the drivers are the key to this whole thing. They are changed a little bit, and like you saw, you know, in the microscope pictures and in the graphs and whatnot, there are still a lot of similarities. Same quality of driver, but the drivers themselves, the tuning was changed. So, and I find it pretty fascinating how they did that. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you later because I got a whole bunch of other videos that I need to make. And we'll start getting into teardowns of the KZ IEMs that they sent me. I'm going to take apart the H10 headphones. I got to review those and take those apart. So yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll catch you later. Peace.